Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Divine and in today's tutorial I'll be showing us how to cut and sew this beautiful dress here. So this dress has like a wrap on the chest area to the under bust. It has a ruched shoulder, it has a basque waistline and gathers on the lower part of the dress. So if this is something you are interested in, kindly watch this video to the end and let's get started. So I'm going to be marking out my measurements and these are the measurements I'll be working with. I'll mark out my apex, I'll mark out my chest line, I'll mark out my length to under bust, I'll mark out my half length, and I'll be labeling each of these lines. Then next, from my half length, I'll be marking 7.5 inches downwards to get my hip line. So I'll label it hip line. Then I'll be marking my bust measurement divided by 4. I'll mark that on my chest line. And on my half length I'll mark my round body measurement divided by 4. Then on my hip line also I'll mark my hip measurement divided by 4. Then I'll connect all the points together. So this is what we are having. Next I'm going to be coming down from my half length with 1 inch on this side. I'll come down with 1.25 on the side. Then on the center front I'll be coming down with 5.75 inches. Then I'll connect it like so to get our basque waistline. So this is what I'll be having. So next I'll be marking my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which gives me 7 inches. I'll mark 7 inches and from that 7 inches I'm going to mark my sleeve length of 12 inches. So I marked 15 inches here. I later corrected that to be 12. I didn't want the shoulder to be too full. And from that point there, I came down with 1 inch to get our shoulder slope. Like so. After which, I marked our neck width of 3 inches. So I'm going to be connecting the shoulder slope now to the neck width of 3 inches. So this is our shoulder slope. So I'm going to be reducing our sleeve length here to 12 inches. I won't be using 15 inches again. I don't want the shoulder to be too full. So 12 inches, and from that shoulder slope I'll be coming down with 8 inches for our sleeve opening. So this is where our hand will be coming out from. 8 inches. Now from the length to under bust, I'm going to be extending the length to under bust line. Then I'm just going to mark where this 8 inches stops on that length to under bust line and go inwards with 2.5 inches. So we can use 2.5 inches, you can use 3.5 inches, whichever works for you. So depending on how full you want this, I later reduced this to 3.5 inches. I didn't want that part to be too full. So I worked with 3.5 inches at this point. So this is it. So this part is going to be the first part and this lower part from the length to under bust is going to be the second part of our dress. Now for our neckline, I'm going to be connecting using a V-shaped neckline from the length to under bust to the neck width of 3 inches. So the neck width is 3 inches and the depth is to the length to under bust. So I'm going to cut out. I'm going to use this piece to cut both the front and the back. And you know the front of our dress is a wrap. It is a wrap bodice. So I'll be showing us how to go about the wrap. And for the lower part, this is how I'm going to be cutting it. I'll label it front. Now to get the back of our lower part, I'm going to be tracing out our front pattern on another piece of paper. So on this piece of paper, I've marked out my zip allowance of 1 inch before placing the front on it. Then I'm just going to trace out what I have for the front on this piece so we can get the back. Then I'm going to take note of the waistline and you can see what I'm having. Now on this waistline, I'm going to be doing my back tightening so that I can eliminate any form of zipper bulge. I'll mark half inch on both sides on the waistline and connect it back to the side. So you can see I've added my zipper allowance to this pattern. So by the time we close up this area, we'll be eliminating any form of zipper bulge. So this is what I'm having. I'm just going to cut out. Then I'll be closing up this dart like so. I'll crease it upwards, then tape it down. I'll tape it down. And that is it for the back pattern. And this is our front pattern here. So for the front pattern now for the upper part, in order for us to get our wrap, I'll be placing another piece of paper underneath this upper layer. I'll tape it down. Then I'm going to extend the length to under bust line like so. I'll just make this visible. This is our initial neckline. So on the length under bust line now, I'm going to be coming out with 2.5 inches. I'll mark that and I'll connect that 2.5 inches to touch the neck depth on the shoulder line like so. And so I'm going to be taking note of this point here where our neckline stopped initially before the 2.5 inches. That is going to be the midpoint of our wrap. So I'm going to notch it. So when cutting on our fabric also, I'm going to be notching it because that's our center front. So you can see what we are having. So this is the fabric I'll be working with. I have 2.5 yards of this fabric here. And I have my pattern. So I'm going to be cutting out my patterns now on this fabric. So I'm going to be cutting, for the upper part, I'll be cutting 2 of this for the wrap at the front. Then for the back, I'm going to be I'll be cutting out that wrap we added. I'll be cutting it out to get our back. So I've cut out now, I've added my seam allowance of 1/2 inch around this pattern. And on the shoulder, I'll be adding 1 inch, not 1/2 inch, 1 inch on the shoulder because we need to create a casing to pass our rope. So and on the side also, I added 1 inch. So this is what I'm having for my back pattern also. You can see my back pattern, I cut out the wrap we added, the extra pieces of paper we added, I cut it out. And I've also gone ahead to cut out the lining for each of these pieces. So this is what I'm having for my back also. The lower part of my back and the lower part of my front, I've cut out the lining also for the both of them. Also, the ropes we'll be using on the shoulder, I've gone ahead to cut it. I have 2 inches of rope, 2 inches width and a length of 22 inches. So I'm going to fold it like so, like a bias. Then I'll fold it again so that we are left with 1/2 inch. I'll do that for the 4 ropes. Then next, I want our lining piece to have a bias, a facing rather. So that when we put on our dress, the lining will not show at any point. So we're putting a facing on the neckline and on the sleeve so that our lining does not show when we wear our dress. So I'll fold my fabric into 2 like so and place the neckline on the fabric. I'll use my chalk to trace it out, to trace the shape I have there. So this is optional, yeah. You don't always have to put a facing, but I want a facing for my dress so the lining does not show at any point. So I'll trace what I have. I'll mark it with 2.5 inches at the back. So sorry, this is not so visible, but I hope you understand what I'm doing. I'm basically trying to get the facing for the neckline. So this is the facing for the front. I'm going to cut out the facing for the back also. I'll place it like this, then trace the shape of the neckline of the lining. Then mark 2.5 inches backwards and cut. So this is what I'm having. Then next I'm going to be cutting out facing for the sleeve. For the sleeve area. You can see how I'm placing it. Then I'm just going to cut. So guys, if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, please click on the subscribe button below, and also don't forget to like and share this video. Thank you. So to sew this now, I'm going to place the facing on the right side of the lining. I'll fold 0.25 inches inward and sew on it, then turn it over and sew the other part. So you can decide to sew this anyhow you want it to be. You can sew it and turn it, but because of the curve there, you can just fold it in with 0.25, sew on it, then turn it the other way and sew. Whichever way you use to sew your facing will work for this. And for this curvy area, it will not be easy to turn it this way and sew. So you just place your facing on the lining, fold it in with 0.25 and sew as you are folding in. Sew as you are folding in. Then on this side, just sew it down on the lining. So I'm going to do that for all the lining pieces I have, for the back and the front. Then I'll show us what we are having after sewing. So this is it, guys. After sewing our facing, this is what I'm having for the back, and I'll just trim out the excess fabric that we are having. I'll trim it out, and this is it. So now to sew our fabric, I'll be placing our main fabric on top of this lining, and I'll make sure the right side of my main fabric touches the right side of the lining. That is where our facing is. So you can see the right sides of both are facing each other. I'll close it up like so, then sew the neckline with 1/2 inch. And on this point, I'll be attaching my hemming gum also. I'll do the same for the back, making sure the right sides are facing each other, then sew with 1/2 inch. And this is what I have. You can see how it came out after sewing. Now to close up the sleeve, I'll turn this to the wrong side. I'll turn it over to the wrong side like so. Then I'll sew the main fabric and the lining piece using 1/2 inch on the sleeve area. So I'll turn it to the wrong side so I can close up the sleeve area. I'll sew with 1/2 inch. And this is it. This is what we are having after doing that. So this is our front fabric here. I'm going to be sewing the shoulder close now, and I'll place the back piece on top of the front piece so we can sew the shoulder close. And you remember we added a seam allowance of 1 inch on the shoulder. So I'll be sewing the 1 inch now and open it and iron. So this is what I have after sewing the 1 inch. Now I'm going to be folding it again. I'll fold it inwards with about 0.25 inches again. This is so that we can have a channel to pass our rope. So I'm going to fold this in. I'll do this for the both bodies. I'll fold it in and sew it all the way. After which I'll be using my safety pin to pass through our rope through those channels. Then after passing our rope through the channels, I'm going to be tacking. I'll take it to my machine and top stitch on the shoulder area, on the neck area, so that the rope does not remove when we are trying to draw our gathers there. So I'll pass in our rope, then top stitch on the neck area. So this is what I'm having after doing that. You can see the channels, you can see the rope. Next, I'm going to be lapping the front piece of this dress. You know, the front of our dress is a wrap. So, and I said when we are cutting the part I notched, we have to take note of that notched part. So I'm going to be placing the notched part on top of each other. So I'm going to pin the two notch parts together. So the notched parts are on top of each other. That is our center front. So then I'm going to sew all the way using loose stitches. And on this back piece too, I'll be sewing using loose stitches so we can draw our gathers. And after doing that, this is what we are having after doing that. So I'm just going to highlight the midpoint. I'll take out my pattern from this front piece now. Then notch the midpoint of this lower part. So that is the midpoint, our center front. Then I'll measure what I have from one end to the center front, which is 9 inches, and I'll measure what I have from the center front to the other end, which is another 9 inches. So I'm just cross-checking. I have 9 inches, that's 18 inches. So it means I'm going to be drawing my gathers from one point to the midpoint to be 9 inches, and from the midpoint to the other point to be 9 inches. I'll draw out my gathers to be 9 inches on both sides. And after drawing out my gathers, I'm going to be sewing the lower part to the upper part now. And I'll place the midpoint of this lower part. I'll be placing it on the notched part of this upper part. You know, I said the notched part is the center front. So I'm going to be placing the midpoint of the lower part to that notched part, and on the lining also. So the main fabric is facing the main fabric here, and the lining is going to be underneath. I'll pin the 3 pieces together. So the main fabric is on top, is facing the right side of our upper part, while the lining is facing the wrong side. So you can see how it is. I'll pin them together, then sew with 1/2 inch. I'm going to do the same for the back. I'll take out my patterns, as you can see, and I'll measure what I have. And I have 10 inches. Unlike the front where we have 9 inches, here we're having 10 inches because 1 inch is for our zipper allowance. So it means I'm going to be drawing my gathers of this dress now to be 9 inches, not 10. Because 10 on this lower part is because of our zipper allowance. And after drawing out our gathers, we'll be placing our gathers 1 inch away. We won't be placing the gathers on the zipper allowance. I hope you understand that. So after drawing out my gathers to be 9 inches, I'll get the lower part of my dress now and mark the 1 inch for our zipper allowance. Then please watch closely how I'm placing this. I'll place it starting from after the 1 inch point for our zipper allowance, then I'll pin it. So don't place your fabric on the zipper allowance, you place it after the zipper allowance. So I'm going to pin, then I'll be placing my lining piece underneath. So I'll mark my zipper allowance on the lining piece also, then place it under. So you can see my main fabric is facing the right side of the dress, while the lining is facing the wrong side. I'll pin them together, sew with 1/2 inch. Then on the zipper allowance side, I'll be sewing with 0.25 inches. So I'll sew 1/2 inch up and 0.25 on this side. And this is what I'm having after doing that for the both sides. You can see how our dress came out, and we are left with 0.75 allowance. So you can see how the inside is. You can see our facing, how our facing came out well. Next, I'm going to be sewing this lining. I'll be sewing the lining in place. You can see our facing here, guys. This is what I wanted to achieve. Next, I'm going to be sewing our lining in place so it stops moving. I'll just match it together with the main fabric. I'll do that for the front, and I'll do that for the back. After doing that, I'll be closing up the side. So this, for the side, we added a seam allowance of 1 inch to the lower part of the side, while on the upper part I added 1/2 inch. So I'll just be starting with 1/2 inch from the sleeve. I'll start sewing with 1/2 inch. Then on the bodice, from the length to under bust, I will go in with 1 inch. So mark out your allowance and sew. I'll sew a half inch from the sleeve, then on the body, from the length under bust, I'll sew a 1 inch. After which I'll be closing up my zip allowance of 0.75 inches. So this is what we are going to be having after doing that. See, our dress is giving already. So next I'm going to be measuring what I have on this lower part. So I'll arrange my dress properly and measure what I have from one point to the midpoint. I have 9 inches there. I'll measure what I have from the other point to this point, and I'm having 9 inches also. That is 18 inches for the front and 18 inches for the back. So I'm going to be drawing out my gathers with that measurement. So for my fabric here, I have 2 yards on fold and I have a length of 46 inches. So I'll get the midpoint, which is 23 inches. I'll divide that 23 inches into 2. So I'll be using one of this fabric here for the front and one piece for the back. So I'll be dividing one of these pieces into 2. One for the left back and one for the right back. Then I'll be adding one piece to one side of this full one and the other side of this full one. And I've also gone ahead to run my gather stitch on the tip of this fabric. So you can see I've added one piece to one side and the other piece to the other side. Then I will get the midpoint of the longest fabric. I divided one into 2. So I'm going to get the midpoint of the one I did not cut so we can get our center front. So this is the midpoint. I'm going to chalk it. So this midpoint we are going to be attaching to the midpoint of the front of our dress. So this is it. So now I'm going to draw out my gathers, making sure one side I have 18 inches for the front and I have 18 inches for the back. So it means I'm going to be drawing one side of my gathers to be 18 inches and the other side of my gathers to be 18 inches. So I'm going to draw that. I will draw that plus the zipper allowance of 0.75 on both sides. So the front is going to be 18 inches while the back is going to be 19.5 inches. Whichever way, just draw out your gathers. And this is what I have after drawing out my gathers. Now I'll be attaching this to the upper part of my dress. I'm going to loosen the zipper allowance. Then open up my blouse properly. So the midpoint of the gathers will be on the midpoint of the upper part of my dress. I'll turn my dress over this way, then sew using 1/2 inch all the way to the end, and this is what I'm having. You can see how it is. You can see the shoulder ruch. You can see the basque waistline. You can see the gathers. You can see everything, and our dress is giving. Now for the lower part of our dress, you can see that it is uneven. You can decide to cut it to be equal at this part, and you can also decide to leave it this way. So I prefer to leave mine this way. I want the lower part to be like an asymmetry, and this is how the inside of our dress looks. Now to close up the center back of our dress, I'll fold our dress to the wrong side, then sew using loose stitches first from the top of the zipper allowance to 2 inches below the gathers. I'll be using loose stitches. Then I'll top stitch and continue with normal stitches. I will fold the hem of our dress and attach our zipper. And this is how our dress came out, guys. Thank you so much for watching and see you in my next video. Bye for now.